Hey guys, welcome to Canadian Beer Journal, entry number 7. My name is Kevin. Today we're going to be looking at a fairly popular product, Mill Street's original organic lager, actually. Um, some interesting stuff going on, local beer news. The Ontario Craft Brewers have announced they're hosting Craft Beer Week starting June 15th this year, so that's definitely something I'm going to be looking forward to. They have a whole bunch of different things. Some of them are localized to certain pubs. Some of them are sort of big public tasting events. Some of them are kind of invitation-only things. So I don't know. I'll see if I can sneak into one of those, taste some of the really exclusive stuff, and get back to you guys on that. Another interesting thing, Wellington Brewery is going to be hosting sort of a craft beer educational seminar. I think they're doing about three of them for women, which is good because women are underrepresented in the craft beer scene, but that might be a whole other video on that. So, anyhow, let's get to the review. Mill Street Original Organic Lager. They claim that this is actually the first beer sold in Canada to be totally certified organic, sort of back to front. It's 4.2%, so I guess we would think of it more as sort of a light beer strength, but it's not billed as that. It's just billed as a normal lager. They use, from what I understand, Hallertauer hops that are grown in New Zealand. So kind of German ingredients, German style ingredients, but they're imported from places that they can be assured do the stuff in an organic fashion. So let's crack it open, see what it's like. I don't drink a lot of kind of macro lager style beers, but I'm trying to widen my palate. Like for a while there, I wasn't really doing any lagers because I sort of fell into that trap of thinking, well, it's a lager, so it's not really craft. But especially in Ontario, there are a lot of great brewers that just do really solid lager products, and like Bose, Creemore. Companies like that have just said, we're going to focus on doing lagers and we're going to do them really well. So I tried to open my mind up a bit and, check my bias at the door. So looking at this, it's fairly familiar to, someone who drinks sort of more standard lager beers. It's they call it a pilsner, so maybe what you call a pale lager. So sort of a straw-colored appearance, fairly bubbly in there. It's got a medium white head. It's going pretty quick though, but let's give it a nose. Bready, definitely. Um, in terms of hop, I'm not getting that much. Maybe there's like a little bit of a kind of medicinal, uh, sort of grassy hop in the background. It's sort of characteristic of Hallertauer. What I'm not getting, which is interesting, is kind of that metallic smell that you get out of a lot of kind of big produced lagers. Um, some of them are using hop extract instead of like whole cone hops and that sort of thing. I don't know. For me, I find that it produces this kind of weird um, metallic note in there. All right, cheers. Let's give it a taste. So it's definitely, again, fairly familiar. If you're used to drinking here in Canada, it'd be Molson Canadian or Labatt Blue or maybe something like Coors, Bud, Miller. One of the more standard pale lagers out there. This is going to be familiar to you. It's got that kind of breadiness up front, not too bitter going down at all. It's balanced. I'll give it that. It's definitely nothing's standing out in kind of really sharp contrast to anything else. Um, but yeah, overall, I would say it's quite on par for a beer of this style. But I'm going to give it a minute or two to warm up. I don't usually drink lagers very warm, but we'll see if it changes a little bit. I'll be back to you then. Alrighty. All right. So I've been sipping on this now for a few minutes. It's gotten to about that sweet spot, I would say, with a pale lager. Personally, I've found that if you leave a pale lager too long, you let it get too warm, the yeast note comes out and it's a bit overwhelming for the rest of the beer. So I usually like it at sort of cool, not necessarily ice cold, that's where I find I enjoy them the most. What I'm getting now over what I was detecting before is more kind of clarity in the individual flavors. So the breadiness is now more distinctly a barley kind of taste. The bitterness at the end is more distinctly an herbal, hoppy bitterness. And that's what I like to see in a beer. I like to be able to actually taste the ingredients, kind of assess what's going on in the brewing process. In terms of placing this beer, it's, as I was saying before, totally along the spectrum of a mass-produced pale lager, or what some people call a macro lager, or slightly derisively an adjunct lager. Obviously, this doesn't have any rice or corn syrup or anything else in it. It's just water, barley, hops, yeast. Um, so what I would say is if you're used to drinking those kinds of beers, just macro lagers, this is definitely not going to put you off. And it has some things going for it that I would say put it above and beyond those products. It's locally produced, so you're supporting people from your community if you live in Toronto or even Ontario when you buy this product, and it's made organically. Now, if you don't support the whole organic movement, then you can just buy it because it's made locally. Um, some people might look at it and say, okay, but it's slightly lower alcohol and it's slightly more expensive, but um, I don't know if that's the way I would go about buying a beer, because that sounds more like you're just buying it to get buzzed. And it's not trying to compete with IPAs or that sort of stuff coming from the other end. If you do drink more craft products, if you do drink more unique styles of beer, there's a tendency to slam these kinds of beer and say, well, there's nothing really happening with the pale lager. They all taste the same. What's the point in having one over another? Well, it's not trying to cut shares out of the imperial stout market. It is what it is. They've designed it, I think, specifically to compete with some of the larger produced beers, and it's been quite successful. You can now get this product in, I would say, most bars in Ontario, and it's a fine tasting beer. Within the style of pale lager, I would say it's even a little bit more interesting. And it's something that's designed to appeal to a specific palate that is out there. And I can't really say that that's a bad thing. People like what they like. If they like pale lagers, go out and try this. Cheers.